So now let's discuss special circuits of the cardiovascular system. And we'll find that there are a couple of patterns or a couple of special circumstances where the general pattern of circulation that you and I know are going to be slightly altered. Let's just remind ourselves of general circulation here for a moment. You'll remember that the whole purpose of circulation is the picking up and delivering of substances. We often think in a more focused way of blood pressure and of blood moving through arteries and veins, but all of this pressure, all of these tubes that lead to and from the heart are really there for one larger purpose, which is the picking up and delivery of substances. You know already that there are two circuits involved: the pulmonary circuit from the right side of the heart out through the lungs, which is picking up oxygen, and the systemic circuit that picks up that oxygenated blood left side of the heart and circulates that blood throughout the human body to all other tissues except the lungs. You know this involves two pumps within the heart. The right side pumps through the pulmonary circuit to the lungs. The left side pumps through the systemic circuit to the entire human body. All of this involves arteries and veins, and by now you should clearly be able to follow the circulation of blood through all of the major structures of the heart and all of the general blood vessels throughout the pulmonary and systemic circuits. But all of this, remember, is for that one purpose of delivering materials, and this happens in the capillaries. The capillaries are the only tubes small enough that raw materials can be taken to and from the capillaries and into the various tissues of the human body. So with our knowledge of general circulation here, we can now look at these two alternate circulating patterns. And there are two special types of circuits that we want to deal with on this topic. The first is called portal circuits. These are like normal circuits, but there are extra capillaries involved, and these capillaries are in line to and from the heart. For example, if I was talking about normal circulation, I would say blood flows out from the heart through through arteries, then into capillaries, where deliveries and picking up materials takes place. And then generally that blood flows back straight into veins and back to the heart. In a portal circuit, there's this extra set of capillaries and an extra set of veins. So the blood that has already passed through capillaries and into veins then is transported to another set of capillaries where cells are involved with the capillaries. And then after that second interaction with the tissues of the body, then that blood is finally collected into veins and back to the human heart. So this is a different sort of pattern. I'm going to show you more detail on this in a moment, but this is the basic pattern there. The other special circulating pattern is called fetal circulation, and as you might get from the title, this is circulation in the unborn child. And because the child's environment is different than your and mine, because the child is not in the outside world where resources like oxygen and nutrients and things are not available to it, it turns out that the circulating pattern in the unborn child has to be different than it is in a normal human being. So I'm not going to deal with fetal circulation in this lecture here. I've got a couple of special lectures on fetal circulation that you're going to do after this lecture here. What I'm going to do, though, right now is try to explain in a little more detail portal circulation. So let's talk for a moment about portal circuits. The diagram that you see here is the same type of diagram that we've looked at before. You should easily be able to pick out pulmonary circulation here, as well as systemic circulation. But notice that the inferior part of systemic circulation has a lot more detail to it. And a number of the capillary beds, there's many, many capillary beds now that you see down below, and these all come into play as we talk about this. A normal circuit, as we've been describing already, would look something like this, where blood flows out through arteries, through capillaries, and through veins and back to the heart. Let's look at an example of a portal circuit now. And let's look at that inferior area here. Now watch blood. There are several off-ramps here from the aorta. I think you can see the large red tube descending through the body would be the aorta. And if you see those arrows, that's where lots of blood is flowing through arteries and out into specific capillary beds. But notice now, as the blood passes through those capillary beds, it now enters into veins, as it might otherwise do. But the veins from each of those capillary areas do not lead back to the inferior vena cava, to that large tube over on your left-hand side that's leading to the right side of the heart. Those veins, right, or that vein, that big vein that's collecting all those veins, is leading into another set of capillaries here. The blood is passing through the capillaries. It's in contact with the tissues in that area, and then finally back into general circulation. So what do we see? We see that pattern I described before, where we have arteries into capillaries, into veins, but then those veins lead to another capillary bed, and that capillary bed finally leads into a second set of veins, and those finally return the blood to the heart. Now, you might want to say, why is this taking place? Why is there this second set of capillaries? Obviously, there's a second set of veins because there was a second set of capillaries. But if you think about it, all the oxygen, as you can see, is being given up to those first capillary beds. So there don't seem to be, there doesn't seem to be oxygen then going from those beds to there. Let's talk about this in a little more detail. This special portal circuit is known as the hepatic portal circuit. And I think you can catch on to that right away. The blood is flowing through all of these organs of the digestive system. If you look closely, you could see the stomach and the spleen, and the intestines are that lower area there. And in each case, oxygen is being removed from the blood and given to the tissues. That blood is picking up carbon dioxide. And that blood is also picking up nutrients then that are coming through. So this isn't a delivery of nutrients here. This is a pickup of nutrients. The blood in all of those capillaries then flows into the veins and into this organ right here. And we did have a chance last week to look at some organs in the human body, the liver being one of those. And you see the vague outline or shape of the liver here. And that's why this is called the hepatic portal circuit, because hepatic is a word that makes a direct reference to the liver. So all of the blood from the digestive system, you can see, is entering the capillaries of the liver. You might think, oh, the liver, how does the liver survive? It doesn't if it's getting that deoxygenated blood, but hopefully you noticed right here one of the arteries does deliver oxygen to the liver to supply the oxygen needs. But the blood coming from the digestive system, from the stomach and the intestines and the others, is going into the liver for special processing. Obviously not the delivery of oxygen, but some other special thing that's going on in the liver. And actually, I made reference to that last week in the in some of the talk that I did in the lab that we were there. Finally, after that blood is processed by the liver, it then is returning back into general circulation. In the coming weeks, we're going to be talking about the actual blood vessels here. And as I just mentioned, the capillaries here represent all of the capillaries in and around the intestines. You can see the capillaries of the stomach, the spleen. These are the major organs of the digestive system, of the abdominal cavity. And those, of course, are all then coming into this vein right here, which is called the hepatic portal vein, making direct reference to this. And that portal vein is leading directly into the liver. So I think you see by now the circulating pattern. I've kind of illustrated it a number of ways. Generally a portal circuit has an extra set of capillaries and an extra set of veins all in line. This is a specific one here. And maybe we should talk a little bit about some of the implications here. The implications of this are in two patterns. There are the nutritional implications, and this is because the digestive system is the gateway to the human body. Remember this from our introduction of the maintenance units or the maintenance systems. We talked about the cardiovascular system being transportation, and then we mentioned that there were two systems associated with it that are the entrances into the human body, the respiratory system for oxygen, but the digestive system being the entrance or the gateway into your human body for all solid and liquid resources. So this is an incredibly important place because this is raw materials. I mean, whatever you put in your mouth and you digest and you absorb is coming into your human body. And, we could say there are times when people put things in their mouth and swallow them that don't belong in their human body or are not good for them. So there are implications here with the digestive system and the liver. And the liver then, the one of the primary reasons for sending digestive blood to the liver is that the digestive system is simply absorbing all sorts of nutrients. And they're coming in their raw form. They're coming in quantities, in whatever form you put them in your mouth. If you're eating raw sugar, then you're flooding your cardiovascular system with sugar, especially if it's simple sugars like in soda or candy that's getting absorbed and coming into you immediately. So the body has a need to not just flood certain nutrients into the body, but be able to control that. And so as we said in our lab last week, the liver is a chemical refinery. It's a processing plant for blood. And so all nutrients that you take in do not immediately begin to circulate in your human body. That would be an unwise thing and not a safe thing to do. So all those nutrients that you are eating are going to be transferred by that hepatic portal vein straight to the liver first. That blood goes into capillaries so that that blood, and all the elements of that blood can then be processed by the cells of the liver. The cells of the liver can alter nutrients or quantities of nutrients so that the blood flowing out of the liver has a more uniform sort of state to it. It has a chemical makeup that's compatible with the human body, and not just a makeup or a compatibility from what you put in your mouth. So, real important that it processes nutrients. Secondly, though, the liver is capable of detoxifying or neutralizing various poisons. And you might say, well, I'm not in the habit of putting poisons in my human body. And that might be true. We certainly don't want to, but there is a group of substances that are sold regularly. We have special stores for them that are metabolic poisons. And there are lots of people that drink these. They're imbibed in huge quantities. This industry is billions of dollars every year. And you might have guessed by now we're talking about alcohol. There's nothing specifically wrong with alcohol from a general standpoint, but from a cellular standpoint, the alcohol that people drink is a metabolic poison. In strong enough quantities, it can kill, it can poison the human body. You know this because it's usually a slow, gradual process. The cells that are most sensitive to it are nervous system cells, brain cells. And so typically what goes first is a person's judgment, some of the higher, more complex functions. But that can progress to motor implications where people can't coordinate their body well enough. Makes it a danger to drive and things like that. People sometimes pass out where the entire nervous system is just shut down. And if it were to go far enough, it could poison some automatic abilities like breathing. And then a person is in big, big trouble. It takes a lot of alcohol to do that, but it does happen. And people die from alcohol poisoning every year. But as you can see, if you're following the pattern we've talked about, if a person drinks alcohol, that goes into their digestive system, that's absorbed into that bloodstream, and none of the veins from those organs lead generally into the human body, but all of those lead to the liver. And of course, this is why the liver is damaged in alcoholism, because it receives the brunt. It's, in a sense, is protecting the rest of the human body from the alcohol that people drink. It is capable of destroying that alcohol. It's just that people typically drink in large enough quantities that some of the alcohol gets through, that the liver can't handle processing every drop of alcohol, and any that gets through is the alcohol then that impairs people's judgments and motor skills and the like. So the liver is processing and destroying poisons that we take in. And people that take in too much alcohol, too much poison over a lifetime are going to slowly kill their liver, damage the cells that are supposed to be protecting them. And it becomes a snowball rolling down a hill in a sense. The more you destroy the liver, the less the liver can handle the poison, the more the poison affects the liver. And so at some point it really becomes overwhelming, and people die from alcoholism. So that's the digestive side of things. The other implication are medical implications. There are many, many medications that we take that come into us through what we eat. So many of our drugs are what we call oral medications. And so the same thing is going to occur here. If you're taking Tylenol or Advil or any of those, ibuprofen, aspirin, acetaminophen, any of those common sorts of oral medications, all of those go into the digestive system, are absorbed into the bloodstream, and all of that then goes straight to the liver. And so what happens to those medications when they go to the liver? Are those medications a normal part of your human body? Would the liver cells recognize that this is natural stuff that should be in me? And of course, the answer to that is no. Those are not a normal part of our bloodstream. And so what does the liver do? It destroys those medications. Exactly. It takes those medications apart. It destroys Tylenol. It destroys Advil. It destroys Excedrin. It destroys aspirin. And just about every other medication that anybody takes is going to be destroyed by the liver. So you'd wonder, how does any of these medications ever work then? Well, typically they're taken in large enough doses that the dosage exceeds what the liver can handle, what the liver can destroy. And every drug company that develops medications like this has to do clinical trials, both for themselves and for the FDA, but especially for themselves to see what an average liver will do to their drug. So they give larger and larger quantities of a drug to people and see in their general circulation if any of their medication is getting through. Once they determine that some is getting through, they can then pretty well say, well, the average liver is destroying X amount of our medication. So if we want this to do any good, we're going to have to give over and above that amount to the average patient. So let's say, for example, if a drug company found that the liver could destroy about 200 milligrams of Tylenol in any dosage that somebody took, but if they also knew that it took 150 milligrams of that drug circulating within the body in order to have its optimum effect, the idea would then be to produce a tablet how big? 200, 150. The tablet would have to be 350 milligrams. And in that way, when the person took that tablet, when that went into the bloodstream, when 350 milligrams went into the liver would take and destroy 200 milligrams, and 150 milligrams would escape the liver and get into general circulation and have its effect. So every oral medication that is produced has to take this circulatory pattern, this hepatic portal system, into account and count on what the liver might do. The other big side of this, or big implication here, is that you see this because the tests are done for an average liver. If a person is smaller or larger, they may need to take smaller or larger doses based on, a smaller liver is going to destroy less, so you're going to have more medication going through. A larger liver is going to destroy more. So a person needs to maybe at times adjust their dosages for their body size. And where it has huge implications is in infants. You always see that, typical medications, say children under 12 take smaller doses, and infants even take even smaller doses. There are some medications that you can kill a child with if you give them an adult dosage, because that medication can overwhelm the liver and destroy too much of the liver. So anything that is an oral medication has to be clearly thought about in terms of its dosage and what it's going to do to the liver, because all roads, all veins from the digestive system do not lead directly back to the heart. They lead first to the liver and then back into general circulation. Okay? So this is portal circulation in general, and there are other portal circuits in the human body. It's just that this hepatic portal circuit is a good example of one, and one that's appropriate to what we're talking about right now. So make sure you've studied and understand what's going on with portal circulation. And then what you'll want to do is go out and find those lectures on fetal circulation and make sure that you've studied through those as well. All right.